morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank you for being here this morning, this chilly early morning. Thanks for coming. Great crowd this morning. I'm Lori Blake, and I'm the HR Director for Fuchs North America. I'm coming to Hampstead very soon. Excited about that, and proud to have served as this year's chair of the Chamber Board. So, be turning over the helm here soon. If you've not done so already, please silence or turn off your cell phones. I'd like to take this time to thank the Community Media Center as they are filming today's event and streaming it live on their website. The Carroll County Chamber of Commerce has approximately 525 business members, and we've been building relationships since 1924. Relationships drive business. Today, we shine a spotlight on another type of relationship we seek to strengthen and grow: the relationship between our business community and our elected officials who are part of the Carroll County delegation to the Maryland General Assembly in Annapolis. The Legislative Committee of the Chamber has a long tradition of reviewing proposed legislation and taking a pro-business stand by writing letters to our delegation and to the chairs of the various Senate and House committees in Annapolis. These Senate and House committees hold public hearings and examine items thoroughly before recommending to the General Assembly the action it should take. The Maryland General Assembly meets this year from January 13th to April 11th to act on more than 2,500 bills, including the state's budget. Last year, we wrote almost 100 letters protecting business interest in Carroll and the state of Maryland. If you are a member of our legislative committee, please stand to be recognized. Thank you. If you would like to participate in this critically important chamber committee this year, please see Mike McMullen. We start meeting weekly on Mondays, January 25th through the end of March. And everybody knows Mike, so.
We need people.
We need people. So, we have an excellent program for you today, and we will hear from 6 members of our Carroll delegation. As I recognize elected officials and appointed officials, please stand when your name is called. Delegate Trent Kittleman. Senator Justin Reedy. Delegate Susan Krebs. Delegate Haven Shoemaker. Carroll County State's Attorney Brian DiLeonardo. Commissioners Richard Rothschild. Commissioner Dennis Frazier. Sheriff Jim DeWeese. And the Mayor of New Windsor, Neil Roop. Members of the Board of Education, Board President Jim Doolin. Virginia Harrison. Devin Rothschild. And Bob Lord. We'd also like to recognize Carroll County Public School Superintendent Steve Guthrie. And also I'd like to recognize the president of Carroll Community College, Dr. James Ball. Okay. And the mayor of Tawnytown is here, Jim McCarron. Have I missed anyone? Councilwoman Tawnytown, Diane Foster. New Windsor Councilman Ed Paulsgrove. Also would like to to thank the past chairs of the Carroll County's Board of Directors, to ask them to please stand. Immediate past chair, Mike Fox from Lehigh Cement. Mr. David Bollinger from Barnes Bollinger Insurance. Ellen Finnerty Myers from Carroll Hospital, a LifeBridge Health Center. Steve Wance from Carroll Community College. And Christine Walters from 5L Company. If you're currently on the Chamber's Board of Directors, please stand and be recognized. Come on, board. Oh, and we missed Steve Aquino, past chair.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, Steve. Whistle for it.
Okay. Thanks for all that you do for the Chamber and for the business community in our Carroll County. We are very happy to have a great Board of Directors. We'll now hear from our sponsors, BG&E and Comcast. Then we'll turn the program over to Mr. Bill Gavin, Chairman of our Legislative Committee for the past 30-plus years. Wow. Bill will act as moderator during the presentation today. BG&E is a longtime friend of our Chamber, and representing them today is Mike Fowler, External Affairs Manager for BG&E. Please welcome Mr. Mike Fowler.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's really great to see so many politically engaged people out here early in the morning. And also want to thank the delegation for their willingness to attend and engage us in a dialogue about these important issues. Just as 2016 is shaping up to be an important year for the General Assembly, it's a very important year for BGE as we begin celebrating our 200th anniversary. Founded in 1816 as the Gas Light Company of Baltimore, we're the oldest gas company in North America. BGE has grown to become the premier energy provider in Central Maryland, serving over 1.2 million electric customers and over 650,000 natural gas customers. While we certainly want to recognize our past, this celebration is as much about the future and how BGE will continue to provide innovative energy solutions to our customers in Central Maryland. But we also want this celebration to recognize the importance of our customers and our employees and the communities in which they live, work, and play. And BGE plays an integral role in working with Maryland communities to address economic development, public safety, civic issues, and other initiatives that help enhance our neighborhoods. So through the use of shareholder dollars, BGE supports programs that deliver measurable and sustainable impact in areas of education, environment, community development, and arts and culture. So I'd like to highlight quickly two recent examples of how BGE has lent critical support here in Carroll County. So this past October, BGE and Kaboom, who is a national nonprofit dedicated to enabling children to enjoy healthy, active play, funded the construction of a new playground in Dutterer Park here in Westminster. And 120 BGE employees, many of them residents of the county, joined other members of the community, including the Habitat for Humanity, the Boys and Girls Club, and the City of Westminster, to construct it. And the new playground will bring more than 1,500 children in Westminster one step closer to having the play-filled childhood they deserve. Another example is our Emergency Response and Safety Grant program. Now in its fourth year, over $1 million has been granted to 194 nonprofit organizations that support our first responders. And this is really one of my favorite programs. Among the Carroll County organizations benefiting from $41,000 in grants that will be awarded later this month were the Carroll County Volunteer Emergency Services Association and volunteer fire departments in Manchester, Hampstead, Westminster, Sykesville Freedom, and here in New Windsor. So we applaud these organizations for the important work they do, and we're glad for the opportunity to contribute to their mission. So in closing, let me say thank you to you, our customers, for being a partner in our success as we look back over the previous 200 years. We certainly hope the next 200 years are bright, and no pun intended. So personally, I'd like to thank you all and wish everyone a very happy and prosperous 2016. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Our next sponsor is Comcast, and delivering their message this morning is Josh Bokee, Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Comcast. Thanks, Josh.
Good morning. It's a hard act to follow Mike from BGE. But my name is Josh Bokee. I am with Comcast, and I just wanted to say that it's a pleasure to be a part of this. I wanted to thank Mike for this opportunity. I have an opportunity to work with a number of communities, and the Carroll Chamber, I think, is one of the best in bringing and connecting folks together. The opportunity to be here with the delegation and a packed room. Frankly, it's a little bit intimidating to stare out at this packed room of folks. But here at Comcast, what we do try to do is to bring our technology and services to help connect folks together. And we have a great team of folks, both on our business-to-business side, as well as our advertising side, and of course on our residential side. And one of the things that we also are very proud of is our community investment that we make. We've worked with organizations such as the local Boys and Girls Club and our community investment program called Internet Essentials, which is aimed to help bring affordable, high-speed internet to families with low-income families in the community. So again, on behalf of Comcast, it's great to be here this morning, and thank you again, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We are fortunate to have Bill Gavin as our chairman of the Legislative Committee for yet another year. Bill has served on this committee for 40 years and has been the chairman for over 30 of these years. Wow. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Bill Gavin.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We have a couple of microphones up here. I'd like to ask the delegates and Senator Reedy to pass them back and forth as we need. And if any of you folks have questions, rather than not hear the questions, I'd like you to use this microphone, which we can pass around. I'll leave it out here in the middle somewhere. Just
The
pass
only
it back.
person in the room who doesn't need a mic.
Just, thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'd like to give the legislators up here 2 or 3 minutes to talk about their agendas, what they hope to get out of this year's session, and get some point of views from them. And then we'll open the floor to questions. So we'll start with Delegate Shoemaker.
Hello. All right, well, that was a good breakfast, wasn't it? Yeah. I have to tell you that the last 9 months has flown by since Sine Die in April, and just a few days we're going to be going back in for fun and games. And I think it's going to be interesting this year. I read in the paper that there have already been like 1,200 requests for bills from legislative services. And we only had like 1,200 total all of last year, something like that. So, I think we're going to see like probably, before it's all said and done, probably double what we saw last year as all the freshmen that we had coming in last year start to feel their oats and, want to introduce legislation. So I think that's going to be an interesting experience. Now, I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which deals with tax policy and education policy, gaming, and election law. I think the governor is going to have some tax-related initiatives that'll wind up coming before our committee. I'm hoping that our committee is more receptive to that sort of thing than they were last year. Last year, we were only able to get a modicum of tax relief through, and that was in the form of a tax reduction on military pension income, which is fairly significant since we have so many military pensioners in the state of Maryland. But we have a long way to go to make Maryland more competitive from a taxpayer standpoint. So I think the governor is going to want to see tax relief on corporations, which should appeal to a lot of folks in this room, I would imagine. And it'll be my pleasure to serve on the Ways and Means Committee and try to help shepherd that kind of tax relief through our committee. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Shoemaker.
It was interesting you called yourself a freshman because we were told last year by some of your colleagues that they didn't like being called freshmen anymore, and we had to change that. So I'm glad that you're not politically correct. I don't know if you remember that. Thank you. Before we start, every year I just have to take the opportunity to tell everyone sitting here how important your legislative committee is. And I don't say that lightly, but it is. But the job that Bill Gavin does and his handful of people is so valuable to us as a delegation. The 100 letters that they write are so well taken. I think we do a better job than any other chamber in the state. And I say that, and I mean it. So please, when they ask you for help, they don't know how these bills affect your particular industry. So that's just your voice. They're your voice, and they're willing to do it, but you need to participate. And whether you sit there every week and go over the bills with them, or at least let them know when it affects your industry, that is how you make yourself be heard. So please, it helps us tremendously that you vetted these bills from a Carroll County perspective. We read every one of those. The committee chairman, believe me, read all of it. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate the time that is spent vetting these bills. So please help them out. This year, we're in a much a better situation than we've been for many years. In the past, we've always been on the defensive regarding business issues. And now we're on the offensive. Now we've got a governor that is really, last year he was just getting in office and trying to just survive. And throughout this year, even with his health issues, he has done unbelievable amount of work, setting the stage and the environment for major things to occur. And the Regulatory Reform Commission that he put in place has been working all year. And they're only as good as the people that step up too and tell them what things need to be changed. So don't think that there's just magically going to be all these changes without the input from the business community, and they're doing it. So make sure when those opportunities come up for you to participate, if there's something you don't like and doesn't make sense in your industry, speak up, bring it up, because we don't know without that. And our community is very good at that. But they're going all around the state, and people are speaking on the different end. And so we'll see some changes, I believe. If nothing else, we're not going to see more bad things happen. We're heading in the other direction. So the Regulatory Reform Commission regulatory changes in the state are a huge deal, as all of you know from your industries. So we're going to see a lot of that going on for his entire term. You're also going to hear him talk about tax relief. We have some good news. The good news is the receipts are coming in better. The tax revenues are coming in better than we had anticipated. The bad news is a lot of it is from capital gains. Now, I'm not sure if anybody listens to the news, but the stock market is not good. So capital gains sort of was a temporary good thing last year, but it's just not sustainable. I mean, regular wages are still pretty stagnant, going up 2.4%. It's still better than it was. So we have what we call, I guess, careful optimism. So things are better than we thought, but not maybe as good as we would like. So keep in mind when you hear these new revenue estimates, a lot of it is capital gains, and we may not, hopefully the stock market will get better for next year, but the budget is going to be his biggest challenge. We're going to have extra revenue to do some things with, but we've got to be cautious. We still have a huge, huge pension problem. We're $20 billion short in funding the pension plan. And it's something that it's not going away, and we can keep kicking the can down the road. And this governor has vowed that he is going to fix that and make the obligations good. So you're going to hear more about that. We also have obviously some local issues here. We're committed, our delegation, to helping us in our county, bringing in more revenues, especially for our school system. We have challenges that we all are very, very concerned about, both at the community college level, because they're losing enrollment, and our K-12. So those are challenges we've never really faced before in our growing county, and now we have a different scenario. So there's some of the challenges that we face, but we're here to hear from you as well as talk to you. Please, we want to hear from you what your issues are, but we're in a whole other posture now, being more on the offensive and being able to get stuff done with the new governor. So it's very exciting to all of us.
Thank you, Delegate.
Good morning. It's good to see you all this morning. I just want to echo what my colleagues have said about the Chamber of Commerce here. You guys have done such a great job working with us. I feel like I've been able to have a very close working relationship with the Chamber for the time I've spent in the General Assembly. It is so helpful for us to have the feedback from each of you, not just the Chamber board itself, but even especially individual business owners and leaders We want to be your voice in Annapolis, and I think we try very hard. I think we succeed in a lot of ways, but now because of Governor Hogan's presence and because of sort of the sea change we've seen a little bit in Maryland politics, there's more of a listening ear even from some of our colleagues, which is good. There's also some of our colleagues that maybe aren't listening still so well, but we're working on that. I sit on the Judicial Proceedings Committee in the Senate, so a lot of the issues that come before our committee in the Senate deal with law enforcement, deal with crime and punishment, law and order, drug issues. But there are some important business issues that do come before us, things like tort reform, but also one of the we've had issues that come before us along the lines of last year. We had a bill that came through our committee that wanted to basically make it to where you cannot go after someone civilly for shoplifting. So small businesses and retail establishments, this bill essentially was going to say unless the person is charged with a crime, is charged with shoplifting, you can't go after them civilly. Well, unfortunately, most law enforcement, particularly in big areas like Baltimore County, they can't always prosecute every case of somebody shoplifting $50 worth of merchandise. So the only avenue that businesses would have was to go after was to go after someone civilly. And there were a couple of big businesses that had done some things that were a bit unethical and wrong that were already against the law. But because of that, there were people who come in to try to say, well, we should just do away with the whole statute. And so we had to fight that very hard, and we were able to kill that bill. But that's an example of something that would affect a specific sector of our business community in Carroll County that comes up just out of the blue, just because some legislators decide that they don't think it's fair because of maybe someone that was victimized unfairly. There's laws that are introduced or bills that are introduced to try to really crack down on something that someone thinks is unfair, but then can really cause problems for an entire sector of the economy. So that's an example of the kind of things that we see that won't make the headlines, but that are very important to the business community. Our priority and my priority, looking at the state budget and at the tax policy in our state, a lot of times it's been mentioned in the press that we have a surplus now, but we don't have a surplus. It's a fund balance. And it's only a fund balance largely because of the capital gains income that we have. We still have state budget deficits projected in the out years. And so what Governor Hogan has done, I think very wisely, is say, let's not start spending fund balance money that's left over like it's money we're going to have every year. We instead need to continue to work to get our fiscal house in order, and we need to set the stage for real significant tax relief that will help to spur our economy, create jobs, and hopefully keep more people in Maryland. And in closing, I'll say that's really one of the major issues why we face the challenges locally in Carroll County that we face. We've lost a lot of population because there's a variety of reasons for it, but anti-growth policies, as far as the Governor O'Malley's administration, really hurt our ability to grow, to build, because of septic regulations, because of water restrictions that were much more punitive than they used to be on the towns, and then also a very high tax environment and over-regulatory environment has driven people to maybe move across the line to Pennsylvania or to leave the state and leave the region. So our job, I believe, is to try to roll that back, to try to work on making the whole state more attractive for families and businesses, but particularly, obviously, from our perspective, we want to make Carroll County that destination point. So I look forward to working with all of you in the coming session, in the coming years. My door is always open and happy to answer questions today as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand up because I can't see all of you out there, and I like to do that. I'm Trent Kittleman. I represent part of Carroll County. I represent the Sykesville area, and about two-thirds, or a little more than two-thirds of my district's in Howard County, where I live, and the balance is in Sykesville. I will tell you, however, that I love Carroll County, and in the primary, it was Carroll County that gave me the victory, so I'm very grateful to everybody up here. Moreover, I love sitting here the entire time everybody's talking. I'm nodding my head, yes, yes, yes. When I'm in Howard County, the last time, Gail was on the far end, Gail Bates, and I was on this end, and in the middle were all my very nice liberal Democrats. So we hear a bit different story when we're talking in Howard County. And I have to tell you, this is the first time I've been to New Windsor, and the drive was absolutely beautiful. I live on a 111-acre farm in Howard County. My husband used to raise cattle, and this countryside is among the prettiest I think I've ever seen. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to have that drive. Like my compatriots, I have a very strong aversion to regulations, and that's something I was thrilled that Governor Hogan is very actively pursuing. Whatever I can do to help him, I intend to do. I serve on Judiciary, which is the counterpart to judicial proceedings in the Senate, so I have the same bills that Justin does. And thank you very much for the Senate for killing that one bill, because it was a terrible one. Small businesses. My father was a small businessman. He started this business in downtown Baltimore in 1920 and ran it for 50 years. There's no way in the world he could start that business and do the same thing that he did then today. I'm not even sure he would try. It's overwhelming. And I know Governor Ehrlich used to yell at the business community, you have to support the Republicans, the conservatives, the people who agree with you. And he's right, except you guys have something to lose. I mean, there are consequences to doing things sometimes in politics that they shouldn't be there, but they are. And I think that's the importance of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's job is to represent your interests so that you don't get penalized. The Chamber has the tough job to make the tough arguments, and there's not a whole lot that the government can do to penalize the Chamber other than access. But I think Carroll County does do a great job, and I know you all have suffered under the last administration for your wonderfully common sense political understandings. One thing that came up yesterday that I thought I would share with you guys is, although you all have some difficulty making arguments that may not be politically correct, one thing that was suggested is encouraging your employees to vote. You don't have to tell them how to vote or anything else. But it is important in small business. There's so many. It is a huge part of this country, and it is so underrepresented in the legislature and in all of politics, and it's a shame. Encourage your employees to get out there and vote, and if they ask you things you can answer, and encourage them to register. And I just thought that was a very good idea and something you could do. My agenda is to try and not pass, to pass as little legislation as possible, because every time we pass a piece of legislation, it costs us all money. Getting rid of things is fine. I only have one bill that I'm going to introduce, and it has to do, I introduced it last year. I would love to see the students in our state be required to pass the citizenship test, the citizenship and naturalization test that immigrants have to pass to become citizens of this country. It's 100 questions, true or false, very short, easy thing to do, and it actually can be done without costing us any money. The education institution is not in favor of it, but it just seems to me that we ought to know as much about our country as the people that we are welcoming into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now we'd like to open the floor for questions. Anyone at all? You must have questions. If you don't have questions, I do.
I guess we've convinced you.
All right.
I'll start it. I understand that there is a bill afoot that there's automatic registration for voting. If you breathe, you get to vote, something like that.
Yeah, I heard that on the radio this morning. The Speaker of the House, I believe, wants to put forth automatic registration when you get your driver's license. Currently, when you get your driver's license, there's a box you check off saying, yes, I would like to register to vote, and yes, I am here as a citizen of the United States. Now, if you check the box, if you leave the box blank on the citizenship, they register you anyway. So that's something of interest that I think is wrong. But I'm not sure why it's so difficult to have to check a box. I mean, we talk about personal responsibility. If you can't check a box saying I want to register to vote, maybe you shouldn't be voting. But they just want to make it automatic that if you get your driver's license, you're registered to vote. And I think that's problematic because you don't know if people are here legally, because you don't need to be a citizen here to get your driver's license. So that is going to, I keep calling you Commissioner Shoemaker. I elevate you Delegate Shoemaker's committee, and I'm sure he's going to kill it, but it is the Speaker of the House's bill. I believe it's going to be his legislation.
That's what I'm hearing. It's a terrible bill.
I think we're all opposed to it.
All right, if you're going to ask questions, please state your name and your corporate or nonprofit affiliation, whatever that might be, so we know to whom we're speaking. Justin?
Just was going to say that they said there's two senators that are introducing that bill on the Senate side, and they want to say that you automatically get registered at, as we discussed, but also if you go onto the Obamacare exchange website and a couple other places. I'm going to say if you fill out if you pay taxes to Maryland, I think maybe we should amend the bill if the bill's going to pass, which I hope it won't. I certainly don't support it, but I think I'm going to put an amendment, try to put an amendment on it to say if you file a Maryland tax return, you should automatically be registered to vote too.
Well, we often talk about who can vote and who can't, but I have to show more identification to buy Sudafed in a drugstore than I do to vote. Any other questions?
We got one over here.
Wait for them. You got to use it because we're being filmed.
You don't want me using it.
But we want to hear it.
I do.
There's no one else going to ask a question the rest of the day.
Bill can just restate it. Bill, you can restate his question.
Okay, you restate my question. Education was a big issue this year, and you talked about funding. Funding is, you're relooking at the formula, correct? Who sits on that committee? How is that process going? Where do you see it ending up?
Education was a big issue, and we're looking at funding this year. He wants to know who sits on the committee that's going to determine the funding for education. Is that correct?
The reevaluation of the formula, Bridge to Excellence formula, actually the Thornton formula, it's been being looked at for over a year, and there's different segments of it. There's different portions they're looking at, and they've had consultants come in for over the last year and issue different reports on the different segments. I believe all the reports are finished. I know as of September, all but a couple were finished. So there's a lot of evaluation being done of components of the formula. I know that we have someone from our Board of Ed that actually is following that. I'm not sure who is actually on the committee that will make the recommendation, but it will come to the legislature as a bill in 2017, next year. So nothing will be done for this year. And, the question becomes, what's going to come out of that? So we have another year. We're very closely monitoring it. The biggest problem we have in our county, though, is declining enrollment. There's some other pieces we need to get fixed as the formula regarding our wealth factor and all. We're not sure how that will impact us. The problem is whenever you redo a formula, everyone always wants more money. They don't want to readjust what's already there. So we've got a lot of counties that have other issues like English as second language or Title I. So there are lots of other counties have different issues than we do. We have the declining enrollment, and many of our rural counties have the same issue, not to the extent we do. So it is going to be reevaluated. It should come to us next year in 2017, and depending on what the recommendation is and what the price tag is on that recommendation and what our financial situation is, it's can we afford what the recommendation becomes. But it's being worked on in the different components of it. I've read all the reports that have come out so far, and we would be favorable of some of the recommendations that they want to adjust for people with declining enrollment, like we've been trying to do. So that's one of the recommendations. But again, it's going to be part of a big package. It's going to have a big price tag, and it's going to. We're not the rural counties don't have the votes like the urban counties to get what they want in the bills. But we're hopeful.
Thank you. Any further questions?
And that's coming to Delegate Shoemaker's committee as well. So we're going to put the pressure on him.
Way down here.
Going around.
Good morning. I'm John Wheatman with the Entrepreneur Store now. And it's a topic I've mentioned to a couple of you before, but I do have a question to follow up. And that's regarding the filing fee for the personal property business tax for the LLC. And I see a lot of nods already. For those of you that don't know, often when I'm dealing with prospective entrepreneurs, their very first thought of the state of Maryland is I'm going to have to pay a $300 fee for the privilege of paying an $8.50 tax or a $14 tax. For sole proprietors, there's a $10,000 property exemption on your first $10,000. For LLCs, there are not. So with the idea that first impressions count for a lot, is there any thought toward either reducing that filing fee or providing an exemption for LLCs for maybe the first $10,000 in property?
I think the governor would like to do that. I think reduce it. And my understanding is it's not something he can do by executive order. It would have to go through what we call the BRFA budget, which is a companion bill to the budget. So I think they're looking at it, but I'm not sure. it's a big chunk of change. The General Assembly looks at things like that's money we're giving away, even though it's it's your money, that's a tougher one to do. I think the governor would like to do it, at least reduce it down maybe to even if it's going down to $150 or $100. I think it's a bit ridiculous, like you said, that you're paying for the right to pay taxes, but. I think the goal was to get rid of that. I think we all would support, eliminating or at least reducing it.
Yeah, the problem with the mindset in Annapolis, whenever a proposal was put forward, they look at the fiscal note, and the fiscal note only contemplates the revenue that's going to be lost, and they don't envision the economic impact of the decision, that if those business owners had that money in their pockets, what would they do with it? How much economic activity would be generated as a result of them having that money as opposed to Annapolis having that money? And that's the fallacy of the fiscal note from my perspective. So, I agree with the senator. I think that the governor would like to do that which you raise in your question, and I think we'd all be supportive of that.
Thank you. Questions? Christine? Here.
Thank you. We know this year we're going to see the return of the paid sick leave bill that we saw last year, and we understand there's proposals maybe for paid family leave mandates, requiring employers with more than 9 employees to provide certain paid leave. We've been working over the summer for strategies to respond to that again this year. Have you all heard if the bill should get out of committee this year, be passed, if Governor Hogan, what his position might be, and if he would veto that bill?
I would say he would veto the bill. And first of all, I think the proposal that's coming out, might come out, is over 10 employees. And you have 2 pieces of this. You have the sick leave, family leave, and you also have the retirement. They want to do a mandatory retirement plan for small business, that you would have to offer it. And guess who's going to run it? The state of Maryland. So I think that's problematic. So we have two possible mandates, and they've been around before. The problem we have in the legislature, there's no doubt that Governor Hogan would veto, I would believe, something like that. However, we still are 2-1, overwhelmingly Democrat to Republican. We picked up seats in the House and the Senate last year, but we're still 2-1. And the bottom line is we don't have enough to, they can override his veto any day. And we need 7 more in the House, and how many more in the Senate? 5. Anyway, so we keep talking about these numbers, and it's a big deal because the governor can veto stuff. And when we go back, the first thing we're going to take up when we go back is veto overrides. He vetoed bills, and they're going to come back and try to override them all. So I don't know. The only backstop we have is that the federal government is thinking about doing it, and it might put it on hold. But there's a lot of momentum, especially because we're in a presidential year. And it all sounds good and feels good, but think about a small business with with more than 10 employees, 11 employees. It discourages growth in your company. If you're 8 employee business and you all of a sudden have to give mandatory sick leave, it's huge. You can't operate that way. And I believe that businesses know best. You want to give your employees the best benefits you can if you can afford to do it, and you're the best ones to know how to do that. So I believe Governor Hogan would I can't speak for him. I believe he would veto it, but we still have the ability to have it overridden by the legislature.
I just add one thing to that because I just had an event Tuesday morning where there were a number of business people there, and they told me, just bringing it up themselves, that if this bill were to pass, they simply would not have more than, 8 employees. They would either have 2 businesses or some way to get around it because they couldn't afford it. And the problem with the other side is they do not understand that this impact happens, that people look to see what works and what makes money and what doesn't, and they're destroying the job market and everything else.
One quick thing, too, is that polling shows overwhelmingly that Marylanders of all political stripes support paid sick leave. And that will be thrown at us when we're there. Now, of course, when you ask someone, do you think you should be able to have paid sick leave, take off if your relative gets sick. A lot of businesses are flexible with their employees, particularly small businesses, to work with them if there's a sick relative. But to mandate it is another story entirely. I say that about the polling to say one of the best things that you as the chamber and individual folks can do is it's a public relations war sometimes, so that we're going to be voting against it because it's a bad policy. Even in a place like Carroll County, which we think, oh, it's a Republican county, it's a conservative county, there will be people who will think, well, gosh, why would you not want people to have sick leave? So if there's ways for you all in the press to write letters to the paper, to do what you can to influence the public debate, as an organization, as individuals, I'd encourage you to do that, and that will help us as we try to, and the governor as well, as we try to make the argument, the common sense argument about what Delegate Kittleman just said. So.
Maybe the question that we all should be asking is, do you believe, would you like to see the government require every employer to give paid sick leave? Because that's what the question is.
Yes, one of the major issues with the Chamber Legislative Committee for many years has been mandated benefits. As the state requires more and more benefits of even the smallest businesses, it tends to sometimes put a small business out of the business of giving benefits, because it's always, if you have a policy, you must do this. So sometimes it's easier for a smaller business not to have a policy. So that hurts people in the long run. And that's the major problem with mandated benefits. Question way in the back.
Paul Sorensen, Gravel Springs Farms, just about 3 miles from here. I'm wondering if there's anything that you all can do in the state legislature, General Assembly, to help speed up access for high-speed internet for the rural communities in the county, because I'm running a business that we sell primarily, 90% of our products go to Baltimore, D.C., or the surrounding suburbs, bring a lot of money back to the community. And so we're running a high-speed business at low speed technology, which is it's a huge problem, and there are a lot of folks who'd like to open businesses in rural areas or farms that need access to this, and it's not happening quick enough. I know we've heard that it's going to expand, it never happens. So I'm wondering if there's anything you can do or anything the governor can do to maybe help speed that access out to us.
I'm going to turn my attention to Comcast. And I'm sorry about that, but here's the thing. Businesses don't want us to get involved in these things. They don't want government putting in the lines and doing things. But if you don't offer the service to our constituents, we have to do that. And the town of Westminster actually put in fiber optic for the city to make sure that they had access. So on one hand, they want us to stay out of their business. But on the other hand, if they don't offer the services to our constituents, we're forced to do something else. So send the message back, Comcast, sorry, that this chamber wants to see access for everyone, not just in the most profitable areas. And I think our regulatory commission in Carroll County has done a great job of working to network our schools, our libraries, and everything together. But now we've got to get our different business parks and our out the last mile people done. And the county is working on some of that. But I really believe, that Comcast doesn't want us involved. We don't want to be involved, but they need to step up and provide broadband to everybody. So I think we all speak on I think everyone here, take that message back to Comcast from Carroll County Chamber and from the legislature.
There is a senator that I've gotten to develop a good relationship with on the Senate side that's very, very much opposite to me politically, but this is an issue he's been looking at. He's from a more urban county, but trying to find ways, if there is some state funding that can be leveraged by the counties. A lot of this is county issues. The county, a lot of times it falls heavily on the county to fund these kind of efforts, and so and it's difficult. So I think we need help from the corporate partners, and there may be some opportunities for grant funding. But in Verizon too, yeah, it's not just Comcast; it's also Verizon we need help with. Yeah, we'll pick on Comcast because he's here, but. I mean, it's an important issue that the gentleman raises. I mean, it's definitely something that it's a hurdle to really expanding business in rural areas, and there's no easy, cheap answers. So that's the battle, but it's very important.
Thank you.
Is anyone here from Verizon by any chance? Because we like competition too. So don't maybe if Verizon would offer to step up, maybe Comcast would step up too.
Just Commissioner Richard Rothschild. Good morning, delegates and Senator. Just a follow-up comment with respect to this paid sick leave, because it's It's a profound issue, and it will be very, very damaging to us if it goes through. I spent 30 years in the private sector, and one of the things that we learned in the private sector is offering any sick leave is bad. It's better to offer just a single consolidated paid time off. Because if you give an employee a week of sick leave and a week of vacation, once the vacation's gone, there's an increasing tendency of employees, or at least some employees, to go to increase demand for doctor's visits so they can get that Friday off before the weekend in Ocean City. And so the impact we discovered in the private sector was that sick leave actually resulted in an increase in what I'm going to call unnecessary healthcare utilization, which will push healthcare costs up. So that might be something that we can use as a countermanding measure to try to convince the legislature not to go there.
The point you're making, I think a lot of big companies are moving towards just total time off.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
specifying sick leave for that very reason. And then
Exactly.
people can take it for how they choose. So at a time when businesses are moving the opposite direction of giving people a choice of how to use their time off, their paid leave, we're mandating sick leave. So it's a good point.
Thank you. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Dave Reese. I work for Carroll County Government Public Works. And I'm wondering, is there optimism on fully funding, again, the Highway Reserve Revenue Funds for Carroll County?
I went to a budget briefing a few weeks ago down in Annapolis where my committee was there. Let's say appropriations, I guess, from the House, which deals with budgetary issues, and budget tax from the Senate, and it seemed like the overriding sentiment expressed at that meeting was, how can we burn through this surplus? And how much more of it can we funnel to mass transit? But I think the message from the governor has been that we want to spend more money restoring lost highway user revenue, and we want to spend more money on transportation projects that people actually use, like roads and stuff like that. So I do believe that the governor is going to put an emphasis on restoration of highway user revenues again this year. Whether they're going to be fully restored anytime imminently is anybody's guess. But I know that he's expressed that that's a point of emphasis for him.
And the governor did say at Mako, we were all at Mako and heard him speak, I think he said over 3 years he was going to try to get it all back. But again, we have to keep it in the budget. The smart thing that the governor did this year with regards to the roads money is he spread it around the whole state. When he took away the red line, which was a total boondoggle, absolute total boondoggle, he took that money and spread it all out, so all those areas are benefiting. Montgomery County, Prince George's County, even Baltimore City are getting road money. So if they want the red line, they're going to have to give all their road money back. So I think that was a smart move to say, hey, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Do you want roads everywhere, or do you want this red line in Baltimore? But he is committed, and I believe it was over 3 years, to getting it fully restored, all the highway user revenues for both municipalities and counties. And we are going to try to keep it in there.
Yeah, during Governor Ehrlich's administration, I served as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, and then I served as the head of the Transportation Authority. And I am thrilled. It's one of the, when I started giving speeches, the first thing I would say is, when Governor Ehrlich came in, the Secretary of Transportation, my good friend Bob Flanagan, said, first thing he did was go down into the basement, take the key, unlock the door, and let the State Highway Department out of the cellar, because roads weren't built, and they will be under Governor Hogan. Pete Rahm, if you haven't met him, is the new Secretary of Transportation, not somebody I'd known before, but just a fantastic secretary with a tremendous amount of experience, a very straightforward, call me Pete, I'm going to build things that work, I'm going to build roads. So I think we are very well positioned to get the money back into the localities to build the roads, and killing the red line was the smartest and gutsiest thing that our governor has done. I was delighted to see it.
Thank you. We have a question over here on the right.
Yeah, Dennis Frazier, County Commissioner. I just want to comment on the wireless internet. This year, the county just finished the backbone, which was started in 2006, of high-speed wireless cable. In order for the county itself to do the last mile connections, it would cost us over $200 million. We just don't have that extra money. We're looking for cooperation or partnerships with public and private to come together to do that, similar to what City of Westminster has done or is doing it right now. Even with the city, it's costing them $24 million, and they're much smaller than the county. But for areas that are outside of where you can put the hard wire down, like we're looking at right now, Lineborough Fire Department and Harney Fire Department, we want to connect them as well. We're doing a wireless shot to them, which will save us over $1 million of putting down the hard wire. We're looking for other innovations like that, and when we get the towers up and those wireless shots running, other private companies can use that for a fee, can use that and get the wireless shot to consumers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Way down there.
And this one right here.
Got one here. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kira. I manage Gourmet Wine and Spirits, which is a very teeny tiny liquor store. And I just wanted to say, I know that there's a proposal to put, to allow alcohol sales in things like Wegmans and like the big stores. And I just want you to see a face of somebody who would be absolutely destroyed by it. Like we would have no way to compete. All those tiny businesses that you see around, especially in Eldersburg, where there's, little tiny liquor stores all over the place, we would be done. We would be absolutely done. And there's a lot of distributors that would also go under, so it's not just me and my whopping 4 employees that would be destroyed by this, but I mean, there would be a far greater outcome from this than anybody would really think about. And so I just wanted you to see the face of somebody who would beg you to not let that go through.
I appreciate that. This is an interesting issue because every year, and just so you know, this tends to come up every other year. Basically, there's a push to do this. Historically, it seems like it comes up every maybe not every year, but every other year. For someone who's sort of a free market economic conservative guy like me, you think, oh well, why shouldn't you allow grocery stores to sell beer and wine? Why is it the government's business to say you can sell it and you can't? But you have to look at it as a controlled substance, which I view alcohol as a controlled substance. Some people don't, but I do. And you also have to look at the fact that people have made commitments long term. Liquor stores have made 10-year leases based on the idea that they take their job very seriously, and I'm sure you do as well, that you not only do you want to make money selling the product, but you also take it very seriously that you're controlling it, that you're making sure that people aren't drinking that shouldn't be. You're watching out for people who may be abusing alcohol. And so I've always been opposed to that. I don't know. I think a lot of us have been, but I've always been opposed to it because even though it sort of runs counter to that idea of it's a free market, so let the free market decide. What happens is if Walmart sells beer and wine, they don't check people like they should for their ID. Also, they don't sell boutique wines, beers, liquors that a liquor store will. And so then eventually you get less and less consumer choice because Walmart's going to sell, and I don't mean this to bash Walmart, but they're going to sell lowest common denominator, what they can sell the most of and make the most money on, which is fine. I'm all for that. But but we don't want that to happen to small business folks who have really put their whole livelihood into something that's been that way since the 1930s. So that's my position on it.
Thank you. We have a question down this end.
I'm Dan McNeil. I'm starting up Miscellaneous Distillery over in Mount Airy, and we're actually running into an issue of even getting started. We trying to fill out the state application, and it requires us to be residents for a minimum of 2 years. I moved here in October, so we're not going to be able to get around that anytime soon without any sort of legislative help. I'm wondering if there's anybody up there that's interested in potentially sponsoring something like that.
Is that a state law or is that a local?
State.
It is a state law. You have to be a resident for 2 years to hold the license?
Correct. Manufacturer's license.
Manufacturer's license. It's an interesting concept. We'll look into it, but I don't know if it's going to help you by the time a law would pass and take effect. I don't know that it's going to help you. It might be next October, so but I'm not sure what the basis of that is. I think they want to make sure there's stability in the state. These are old liquor laws.
Yeah, it's very old law.
I mean, we can look into that.
Okay.
If you could leave us your information before we
absolutely.
leave.
Yeah.
Hands high.
We have time for another one.
Anybody?
Brian Bowman again from the Chamber of Commerce. Part of my role is looking at statistical information. I do data mining. Data mining is like accounting except without the dynamic personality. I do have an issue with the definition of small business. When I was back in the day of college, small business was anything from 100 to 1,000 employees. Anything less than 100 was considered micro business. And also about 2/3 of the economy is from, quote, what I call small business, which is less than 100 people. So I have a problem when you use small business definition of 8 employees. I mean, that's microscopic. And it's like 100 people, you know, you got more assets, more capital, more resources there. Small businesses don't have that.
That's a very good question, because there is no real definition. Depends on who you ask. I've seen definition of small business of 500. I've seen it as 5. The Affordable Care Act has it at 50, and they wanted to change it to 100. So it keeps changing. For the sake of this, it's 10 for this I think, mandatory sick leave. So it's a very good question, because it's not really written anywhere what the definition is, and it's many different places, it's many different things. So that's a very good point. And one thing I wanted to mention, we haven't talked about it all today, is health care. And I should have mentioned this in my opening remarks. The health care, Medicaid, is what's driving our budget deficit more than anything. You know, we keep talking about schools not having money and highway user revenues. The biggest thing driving the state budget today, all around the country, is Medicaid, health care costs. So when you hear a lot about what we're trying to do to rein in health care costs, without that, it strains every other part of the budget that we have. So if you think we're not interested, schools should care about our health care budget, because if you have to spend it on Medicaid. If somebody signed up for Medicaid, we don't have a limit on it. You sign up, you get it, and you might have an excess of people that year, and you still have to spend the money. And it affects every other budget that comes through the state, and that constricts us with spending money on other things that we should be spending on, like schools. So I serve on the health committee, and we do everything related to health care, and there's a lot. We could have a whole session just on what's going on with health care, but reining in the cost of health care and making sure people have access to affordable, quality health care is really important. But the cost to governments, whether it's your schools, your school districts, your counties, and Medicaid, it is huge. So we've got to look at what's going on with health care, health delivery, and health costs, because it affects everything we do in every budget. And I'm sure if you're a small business owner, it is affecting your budget as well. So that's another subject. It just didn't come up today, and I know we have some folks from the hospital, but it affects every business in this room, everybody that's a delivery of service, every government organization, and our state and our federal budget. So keep that in mind. But that's a very good point about the definition of small business.
Okay, one more question.
One last thing, statistical, since I do kind of enjoy that. Maryland, from the last statistics I saw, has the highest per capita income of any state in the United States, because of the influence of the federal government, the study said. The second unrelated piece of statistic was that of the 50 wealthiest people in the United States, and we're talking billionaires, none live in Maryland. One lives in Pennsylvania, one lives in Delaware, one lives in Virginia, none in D.C. We in Carroll or Maryland are grouped in with West Virginia now.
Well, I think last year, and we can all talk about this, but last year when we were here, I think a lot of us talked about net migration of people, and that's sort of a huge issue. We have a huge net out-migration of our wealthier people. And anybody that wants to do, you know, they care about income equality and taxing the rich. The bottom line is, in a state, when you are overtaxing the rich, they leave. And that's just economics. And if you look at the migration data, and we had a whole session on this last year, our caucus, before we came last year, about the out-migration of the wealthiest people in our state, and it is just fact. And the people that are coming into our state are immigrants and lower income people, which is fine, we welcome them. But when you lose your top tier people, you can't pay for the people that are coming in that don't have assets right now. So it's an imbalance that we have, and it's a fight in Annapolis all the time to try to explain this to our colleagues. You need to keep wealthy people here. The estate tax was something we worked on for years and years and finally passed several years ago, and the Speaker of the House reluctantly put the bill in. And they're still trying to overturn that. There's going to be a bill in this year to overturn the estate tax, the exemption, because they want, why give benefits to the rich? Well, the bottom line is the reason it passed a couple of years ago is because the University of Maryland was finding that their biggest donors were now moving to Florida. And then once you go to Florida and live, your philanthropy goes to Florida too. So when the University of Maryland started seeing their biggest donors moving and seeing that possibility, they started raising the red flag. And that's the only reason that they even passed the estate tax, and it's still only $5.9 million of your assets that get overlooked. And most states, you have no estate tax. So that's the only reason it passed. But the Democrats in Annapolis do not want to understand just the economics of keeping wealthy people in our state, because it's good for everybody. So your point is well taken. We all get it. And all you got to do is look at the migration data and the wealth data, and it sits right there in front of us, and it's as plain as day. And it's not just our state; it's the northern states. And if they look at personal personal income tax, and property tax, and they look at those and sales tax, and you look at those numbers, and if they're high tax states, those are the states that are losing people.
Thank you. One more question down here, and this will be the last question for which we have time.
Okay.
So I'll ask the legislators that they can stay a few minutes if anyone has any further questions. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your time. My name is Liz Mattori. I'm actually the only independent candidate for Congress in District 8. I am a former, I just graduated from business school, and I'm, the only moderate Democrat ever in Montgomery County. So, if anything, well, I was a Democrat, actually, so I left the Democratic Party in the summer because of the redistricting. As you know, now District 8 includes Tacoma Park and Taneytown, and so that's extremely diverse. So, if anything, do you support wholeheartedly an independent commission for redistricting and state and federal level?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. We will finish up here.
Just one other comment is that there is a resident of Carroll County who has a lawsuit, Eric Boucher, who was my opponent in the last election, but he's a great guy, and he will be going to court trying to get some of this nonsense overturned where the unfairness of the districts is patent. What? Yeah.
The idea of the redistricting committee, we all agree on that. However, the one thing that has to pass with it, you have to have the parameters in law that they have to follow. Because currently the reason our congressional districts are so messed up is because there's no parameters. So you take it to court, and the court can't do anything because there's nothing that guides them. So even with the redistricting commission, we've got, and the governor put a commission in place to recommend some of these guidelines to be in the Constitution. So you can have the independent commission, but we have to have the guidelines in there. For instance, saying that districts need to be compact. They need to recognize political boundaries like county lines. So without those parameters in the Constitution, there's no guidance for the committee. So they have to go hand in hand. The independent committee is great, but we have to have those guidelines in the Constitution. So remember that.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this back over to Mike so we can wrap things up for the day. It's been very good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Hey, keep the applause going. How about a special thanks to Bill? I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. We all lean on him big time. Thanks again to our delegation. Very nice. This was a really good meeting. Give them a round of applause, please. We could thank people. There's so many to thank. We could thank the folks here, and we're going to for a great place and some awesome food. I'd like to also thank the folks from CMC. You guys do a great job, and we really appreciate your coming along with us on a lot of our events. A couple of announcements for you. Also, let's thank Lori Blake. This is one of her last times to do a meeting as the chair. So she's got one more to do, and that's next Tuesday, our State of the County. And then after that, you get to be introduced as the immediate past chair, which is what all chairs live for, to be introduced as the immediate past chair. And then we'll also be able to welcome Mr. Ben Yingling as the chair of the board for next year. So Ben's right here. Stand up, Ben. We're going to bring you up in a second to do a quick presentation. Your chamber is really doing pretty well right now. We've picked up 40 members since October 1st. I want to thank you for that. I think it's events like this that help us to show that we're worth more than just mixers. I mean, mixers are great. We're all about building relationships, but we're more than just mixers. We have a lot of events that we do, like the Carol Biz Challenge, OTA awards for our educators every year, where we bring them up and recognize them. We have Leadership Carol. We have lots of stuff like that. So now's the time to join. And we're not part of the government. That's something that a lot of folks sometimes think, that we're part of the government. We're not. We exist because of you folks, because of our members. Shop local. I can't stand up in front of a group like this and not give a plug to keeping your money in Carroll. So many of these bills that we look at, you can feel somewhat hopeless. How do you get this thing passed when so many want it passed? But shopping local makes a huge difference to things we can control. And so I would ask you, try to keep your money as, like here in Carroll, as much as you possibly can. Other than that, there's not any real big announcements I have, so I'd like to bring up Mr. Ben Yingling for a real quick, fun presentation, and then Ben will close things for us. So give him a round of applause.
Well, thank you to the representatives for being here, and thank you for your kind remarks and your transparency. I think we all really appreciate that. So I am the chairman-elect, and also I chair the Chamber Golf Tournament, which is going to be on July 15th. And who here has been involved or played in that tournament? I know there's a lot of people who have, and we appreciate that. You know, I had the experience last year to play some golf with Senator Reedy. And I have to say, his golf game is progressing nicely.
I'm getting better at hacking through the underbrush to find the balls.
But it was really great to get to know him. And, in any golf tournament, you create a lot of memories, whether it's the Carroll Lutheran tournament, the hospital tournament, or the chamber tournament. And some of these memories, are documented. Don't worry. So Senator Reedy played on my team with Mike Gibble and my wife, Amy. And I wanted to present him. I've been waiting a long time to give him this gift of our team photo, okay? So when all of you are shaking his hand afterwards or visiting his office, just know, like everybody on this panel here, they're working hard for us in Annapolis, Senator Reedy, he can definitely come back and have a good time, too. So it's my pleasure, Senator, to give you our fun team photo here. So that's what I had, and thank you. We'd love to have you at the tournament again next year. I'd love to have you on the team. All right.
Very much. I'm glad that I look the second most ridiculous in this picture, so that's good.
Oh, that's an excellent picture. You want to get up here. Thank you, everyone. And, for having as many people here who like to talk as we do, my clock says 9:29, so that's pretty impressive. I think a round of applause for that. Thank you so much. And the meeting's adjourned.